WFLA's Bob Lassiter.
Minutes after the hour, 12 noon. Welcome in. It is a Thursday, January the 7th, 1988. I'm Bob Lassiter. With you until 4, as I am every weekday, Monday through Saturday, right here at the Talk of Tampa Bay, WFLA. And you should all have that memorized by now, because even I do. Let me get right down to business this afternoon. I mean immediately down to business. I wished I'd had the opportunity to see Ted Webb this morning, because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about this afternoon has to do with Ted and his show. I didn't. So let me say right off the bat, I think Ted Webb is good people. I don't know him that well. Hell, I've only worked here for a couple of months. We're going out socially tomorrow evening, his lady and mine. And I have the greatest respect for Ted as a human being. So let me get that right out of the way. But the last 2 days, I've heard things on this radio station in the afternoon that troubled me, and troubled me very, very much, because I don't think there's a great deal of thought going into some of the things that have been said by callers, and frankly some of the things that have been said by my friend and colleague, Ted Webb. So I was driving home yesterday afternoon. There was a caller on the air. It was talking about the case concerning the child molestation recently here in Tampa, and also brought up Bundy, and talking about getting, well, what boils down to revenge, although that isn't the word that was used. And the caller said something to the effect of, well, this guy Bundy, you know, if somebody got a hold of him and did all kinds of despicable things to him, that wouldn't be immoral. That's not immoral. It's not immoral to do terrible things to people that do terrible things to other people. That's not immoral. And I suppose on the surface it might make a little bit of sense. I mean, there are some people in this world who are just so damn despicable. So damn despicable that there isn't really much in the way of defending them. But that raises some interesting questions as to whether or not, you know, what in the hell is this thing about, would that be moral or immoral to, for example, mutilate Ted Bundy, to mutilate a child molester, to kill him, whatever it might be. Some of those questions are first and foremost, I guess, what is immoral, and, you know, what really is morality? And we can go round and round and round and round on that one, and I promise you we're not going to. But nonetheless, that's a legitimate question. Morality is nothing more than an arbitrary set of rules and standards determined by the people. Morality does not come from some deity. It is not a divine inspiration. It can't be, because it constantly changes. Morality changes with the times. Morality changes with the generations, with the people. And the bottom line, morality is whatever is determined to be convenient, whatever kind of set of rules that society determines to be convenient for the times that they live in and under the circumstances and conditions that they live in. That's what morality is, plain and simple. But a second question that would also be raised is, who determines morality? Well, no one determines morality, and everyone determines morality. Now, in this particular case that has been talked about on Ted's show, and of course the ever-popular Bundy topic, which is always coming up, I can understand wanting to do the most horrible, the most disgusting, the most painful, the most brutal things to someone who has done something awful to somebody else. I can understand that, because I understand the human desire for revenge. I've sat home and fantasized about doing some marvelous things to people who have done wrong to me. I understand that. But you see, revenge doesn't have any place in a civilized society. It has no place whatsoever. And there are lots of things I understand. I understand walking down the street and seeing a beautiful woman and wanting to jump on her bones to satisfy my own lust. I understand that. I understand seeing somebody with a beautiful watch and wanting to take it from him and have it for my own. I understand that. I understand being less than truthful if it will get me out of a scrape or advance my career or whatever it might be, keep me out of jail. I understand that. I understand cutting corners and cheating. I understand wanting to bash in somebody's car because he took my parking place. I understand all of that. And whether or not you care to admit to it, these are all human traits. But they are things that, for the most part, we don't do. We restrain ourselves because society has determined that things work better if we apply some kind of rule, some kind of restraint. You can call it morality if you would like. Even if those rules are contrary to human nature. Now, you and I know that we seem to be living in a world that is becoming less moral. In a world that is less inclined to play by the rules. At least that's the way it would appear. I mean, oh my goodness, people are having babies out of wedlock left and right, and there's drug and alcohol abuse, and there's greed and selfishness on Wall Street and on Fowler Avenue and over on US 19. No matter where you want to go, crime is rampant. People will rip the chain off your neck or come into your house and take the wallet out of your pants when you're sleeping. Yes, there's child abuse and sexual abuse everywhere you look. Now, most of us don't do these terrible things. Most of us are repulsed at the mere thought of it. Most of us are appalled because most of us are, for the want of a better word, moral people. Or are we? Most of us want to live in a civilized society. Or do we? Now, yesterday and the day before, I heard caller after caller, and my friend and colleague, say that they wanted no part of living in a civilized society. They wanted no part of morality. Oh, they didn't realize that's what they were saying, but that is what they were saying over and over and over and over again. We don't want any parts of civilization. We don't want any parts of society. We don't want any part of law and order. We don't want any part of morality. These were good people. These were good people that were calling up saying this. But people who dream out loud are doing nothing more than reinforcing each other and that it's okay to be immoral. People who fantasize about doing criminal acts, people who fantasize about killing other people, people who fantasize about decapitating other people, people who fantasize about torturing other people, are just reinforcing with each other how it's okay to be immoral. And when they make excuses, and that's in essence what they do, saying, well, you know, it's okay because we're going to be doing it against an immoral person, it doesn't make it right. I mean, you know, so maybe it is okay to go out and kill somebody, you know, to wait 3 years and hunt him down and kill him and put a knife in his hand and walk out the back door if he molested my daughter. I mean, you know, hey, we can all agree with that, right? Or maybe it would be okay to kill somebody or to do whatever to him if he molested my wife. Or maybe it would be okay to do all kinds of terrible things to somebody if he stole my television set. Or maybe it would be okay to do all kinds of terrible things to someone if he, I don't know, insulted me in a bar. Insulted my manhood. Said I had a small weenie or whatever it might be. In front of my friends. Caller after caller justifying, ignoring, circumventing law and order, which is just another way of saying civilization, as well as the courts, the system, and our very moral fiber, the glue that holds us together, the only thing that separates us from mad dogs, if you'll pardon the expression. Now, very few, damn few, if any of these people who took part in this would actually do what they were fantasizing about. Very few, if any of them. But that isn't the point. Just by engaging in such talk, just by excusing and justifying such behavior, it weakens the entire code. For one man, well, it's his daughter. That would justify doing something terrible to somebody else. For another man, it's stealing his stereo. That would justify taking the law into your own hands. For another man, it would just be insulting his pride. I mean, we all have our priorities. We all have the things in our lives that are most important to us. And there are people who think it's perfectly fine to destroy another human being because of words that he uttered. There are people that think it's perfectly fine to destroy another human being because of some indiscretion against his daughter, or his wife, or his girlfriend, or his lover, or his sister. We all have our own priorities as to what is the most important thing in our lives, and we each think that our priority is the right priority. Well, no, I don't think it's okay that you should kill somebody because they took your television set, but, I mean, suppose he did something to your sister. Rules, morality, must be followed. I mean, either all rules are valid or no rules are valid. It's either wrong to kill or it isn't wrong to kill. It's either wrong to steal or it isn't wrong to steal. There aren't exceptions. And no, we're not talking about moral absolutes either. But though we do make exceptions. For example, self-defense. Everyone, just about everyone, agrees that you have the right to take someone else's life if he is threatening your life. Everybody agrees to that. We call it preservation, self-preservation. That's reasonable. Or if somebody is trying to invade your homeland and take your liberty from you, that's reasonable. But these are conscious decisions made by a civilized society based not on emotion, but on preservation. These are situations where we have no other choice but to respond affirmatively. But the instances spoken of on the last 2 days on this radio station are not those which have no other choice. There are other choices. 22 minutes after the hour of 12 noon. See, for the last couple of days, people have been talking about human beings who have done some terrible things to other human beings. Innocent children, young girls, whatever. And people didn't like the way the justice system works. So maybe you don't like the way things turn out all the time. Maybe I don't. Maybe the system is a little bit too slow sometimes. You know what I mean? Maybe there are loopholes that allow some people to kind of just slip on through without paying for their indiscretions, paying for their crimes. But it's that way. The system is that way because of years and years and years of experience that has been passed down to us from people who know firsthand what results when people take the law into their own hands, what results when people dispense the justice and not the system. There was a time in this country when it was perfectly okay to kill a man for stealing your horse. The logic was that he was taking, your transportation, your livelihood. He wasn't just stealing an animal. He was stealing a part of you. And so it was okay to blow him away when you caught him. That sent a message. What was the message? Real plain and clear. Horses are more important than people. Now, civilization agreed after a while. The man was unjustly deprived of his steed, yes, that's true. And that the perpetrator was indeed some kind of a low-life scum, that's true. But that a human being was still worth more than a horse. The amended moral code at the time determined that no man, influenced by emotions, had the right to extract his own form of justice, i.e. killing the horse thief. It was further determined that the best way to send the message that life is sacred, that life is an inalienable right, that all life must be held in the highest regard, was to hold all life in the highest regard. Yes, there are exceptions. There have been and there continue to be. Crimes so hideous, so heinous, were paid for through due process with the perpetrator's life. But the key phrase here is due process. Due process does not equate to popular sentiment at the moment. Every time a person takes the law into his own hands, we destroy a bit of our civilized society. No matter how just, no matter how reasonable, no matter how popular, every time that a person takes the law into his own hands, we destroy a bit of our civilized society. Every time we muse about how we'd like to do it, every time we pop off and mouth off about how we'd like to do it, we destroy a bit of our civilized society. Because it makes it easier for someone else to justify his moral indignation. Every time we denounce the law, every time we denounce the criminal justice system as inefficient or unresponsive or too soft, we tear it down. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Hell, if you have no respect for the law, why should the criminal? Every time we buy a gun, it's a statement saying that I am above the law and the system. We delude ourselves into thinking that it's for self-defense. It isn't. It's a tool for revenge, chipping away at society's backbone, just laying there waiting. And then, of course, there are all of the other ramifications. How many accidental shootings and suicides have you read about in the newspaper just in the first 7 days of 1988? How many? How many criminals have you read that have been shot breaking into somebody's house? I mean, who the hell do you think really killed that young girl in the parking lot yesterday? You did. I did. Because we permit people to rise above civilization and to own weapons so that in the unlikely event that they might encounter a horse thief, they can administer instant justice, instant moral indignation. Well, if the moral fiber of this nation is falling apart, it's not the fault of the obviously immoral. And the percentage of degenerates hasn't really changed over the years. It's the fault of those of us who think of ourselves as great moral beings. People who should know better. People who abide by the laws, for the most part. People who benefit from civilization, but who allow their emotions to override their common sense. People who in their emotional rage advocate abandoning 5,000 years of civilization, 20,000 years of morality. These people are far more dangerous to society as a whole than any mass murderer, any child molester, any criminal that you can think of. And I don't mind repeating that for you. People who allow their emotional rage to override their common sense are more dangerous to society than any of the so-called immoral people. They're more dangerous because by suggesting that there are times when it's okay to override the rules, they in essence make it easier to justify still other instances of overriding the rules. I mean, hey, today it's okay for dumping on a child molester. Tomorrow it's the guy who steals your TV. The day after it's the guy who cut you off in traffic. Today it's the courts. They're too limited. They're too soft on molestation cases. Tomorrow it'll be the courts are too soft on bad check charges. Society doesn't break down because of the bad people in it. Society breaks down when the good people look for shortcuts. Society breaks down when the good people think that they can also be immoral. It's immoral when people seek revenge and not justice. It's immoral when people try to circumvent 20,000 years of civilized behavior. It's immoral when society wants to behave like animals and dealing with sick people. You see, it's not the bad people who are the problem, it's the good people. The bad people aren't trying to dismantle the law system in this country. It's the good people who are out there arming themselves, not supporting the criminal justice system, but looking for ways to get around it. It's the good people who want revenge. It's the good people who are into vigilante justice. It's the good people who want to amend and bend the rules. It's the good people who are the real problem, the real danger. It's the people who have so little understanding of just what morality really is that are responsible for its downfall. Because when the people who are the very backbone of the society, the guy that goes out and works his 40 hours a week and pays his taxes and pays his bills and tries to lead a decent, normal, civil life with his neighbor, that's the backbone of society. But when that guy thumbs his nose at civilization, it's just that much easier for those who have a hard time trying to toe the line to cross over the line. And damn it, why you can't understand this is beyond me. I just don't understand. But there are things that I do understand. Understand it's still a week after the holidays, and that if I don't ask some type of obligatory question, I may sit here chatting with myself for the next 4 hours. So let me come up with the obligatory question for you. Who is it that's responsible for the breakdown in our moral fiber? 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas County.